So we're straying away from the last 3 weeks. We've had a threefer of conference spotlights on Mid-States hockey. And normally we would roll right into the municipal, which was the last conference that was up this week. But they're playing. They're playing hockey. They aren't available. And so we had to pivot. And so today's segment, we pivoted over to the recent Central States Development Hockey League champions, the St. Louis teams that were represented. What a great pivot. And then next week, Coach, we can come back and talk to the Mid-States municipal boys and do another roundtable, right?
Absolutely. And when we talk about, some of the things that went into you and I starting the show, it was helping coaches, whether you're a new coach, whether you're a volunteer coach, whether you're two guys that are hosting a podcast. But it's bringing perspective of successful coaches. And we just happen to be lucky enough that we've got three championship coaches from this past season that were able to come on and join us here. So today we're joined by Greg Anderson, who is head coach for the 14U St. Louis Eagles. We've got Bob Jacobek, who is head coach for the 18U Afton Americans. And then we're going to stray out across that Merrimack River, and we're going to welcome in Coach Cicotte from the St. Louis Sting. All three have had phenomenal seasons. I'm excited to get to know them all a little bit better, but more importantly, want to hear not just from the coaching aspect, and I guarantee we're going to hear a lot of things that are very similar from all three of these great coaches, but we're also going to be able to identify throughout these different age groups, when to lean in, when to let the kids kind of lead, when to be directive. And so super excited. And I think that it's going to be a great conversation, not just for our coaches out there who are listening, but for players and parents as well. So without further ado, Grant, let's bring the boxes in and talk to the boys. Hey guys, how are you there?
Great. How about you guys?
Good.
Excellent.
Doing well. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Hey, congrats, guys! You're winners. Way to bring it home.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate that, but I think we're all worried about the next game. So,
well, the reality here is you're always coaching, right? And I think as a coach, we're always the celebration is short-lived, especially when you're looking to that next challenge and you're looking to help those players get over that next proverbial hump. And as you said, Coach, you are all natty bound, which means you're going to be playing some very intense hockey games against your arch rivals over the next couple weeks to see who's going to qualify to go to the USA Hockey National Championship tournament. So, but in between now and then, Drew and I were hoping that we could, have a great round table coffee talk here with some great coaches, give you guys an opportunity to bask in the sunlight of some big victories. And let's get it kicked off right away without any more pretenses from me. You guys are all part of teams that are advanced level, higher level players here in the St. Louis area, and we like to call them tryout teams, where the coaches and the assistant coaches and some other folks are not just looking for the 18, 20 best players. It's really starting to build that team. Everybody gets excited about the championships. What are some things, and go ahead and just jump right in, that people don't see it, and that, the anxiety and the decision-making that goes into building these teams?
I'd be happy.
Cooper, why don't you go ahead, Bob. Take it away.
I'll go ahead and start. So, as you know, it's a super long season. We, in fact, the season really never ends. I think we get a month off sometime in the spring and a month off between tryouts and when hockey starts. But, generally our teams are picked in June. Off ice, on ice, starts mid-July, so it's a long season. It's in, I'm sure all the fellow coaches here would agree. Putting the team together, it's a puzzle, especially if you had turnover. And we've been fortunate enough, to promote a bunch of people to AAA, but that means that we've been replacing 6 to 8 guys every season. It's a puzzle. Springtime is crazy time, we call it in midget hockey. Where rumors abound, and you're trying to figure out what your team's going to look like next year. I'd like to say that we just go out and pick the 20 best, most talented kids, but that's not really how it happens. We're always looking for guys who handle specific roles. You're going to need to kill penalties, block shots. You need some guys playing a heavier game, some guys that can establish the forecheck. So it's to me, that's the most important part of developing a championship culture, is identifying roles for all your players. And more than that, it's one thing for you to identify the roles. It's for the players to also buy into those roles. And we were fortunate enough to have 20 of those guys this year. And I think it's pretty certain if you asked any kid on our team, they would know what their role is.
Cooper, you're an age group down there at the 16U level, which is kind of a transition year, because you've got kids that this is the end of the road for them, and others are ascending. What can you add to what Coach Jakubek mentioned there?
Yeah, it's kind of the first part in their life where they're getting their first taste of freedom. That driver's license definitely plays a big part in their life, having that freedom, kind of leisure time to go do what they want. So sometimes hockey can become second nature. Myself, like Bob, I've been pretty fortunate the past 4 years with this team. I've always had a good group of kids, good group of parents. But yeah, it's kind of not necessarily picking the best players, but the best, players to fit your team, your identity, your culture. And that starts at the beginning of the season. I'm big on team building. You don't have to spend every waking moment outside of the rink with these guys or have sleepovers all the time if they still do that at 16. But, you got to kind of love and respect each other in the room, on the ice. Like, this is all we got. We're not adding, replacing any kids once tryouts is done. So you gotta make it work. And as much as I would love for every kid on the team to have 80 points a year, it's just not feasible, right? So you kind of push kids in certain situations with 5-on-5 end of game minutes, power play, penalty kill, and they sort of realize and adapt, like, okay, I'm really good at dumping pucks in and putting pressure, or I'm really good at blocking shots. And, that's kind of how those kids kind of find their roles, and some stick with it and love it, and some try to, veer away from that path and struggle. But it's all part of the process and journey as a hockey player. And then obviously progressing into a young adult in the real world. And that's my biggest thing, is I always love to kind of realign hockey with the real world transition for them.
Greg, what are some things coming from that kind of what I consider kind of that last age of true youth hockey, true minor hockey from the 14U perspective, that Cooper and Bob, started us off on?
Or in terms of, 14U, or it's one of my favorite birth years. They're still young enough to, still have that belief of making it, the goals, the aspirations of whatever that is, high level, NHL, OHL, whatever it may be. But they're still young and belief, and not to say that it can't happen, but I think as they go to the 16s and 18s, the game just changes. It's a completely different dynamic. 14U, 8th, 9th graders, they're in that transition period as a youth hockey player, and they're used to the squirts and the peewee levels, and where the game, let's be honest, like, I hate to say it, like, was fun and not much thought to it. But as you get older, it just becomes more competitive. and then obviously the higher level you're at, it just brings out more craziness. So, in terms of picking teams, my story this year has been extremely unique. I was retired after last year, my last season, after year 20. And so I stepped away from the game. And mid-October, I was on the golf course on a Monday and my phone rang, and the individual was calling me. I thought it was odd or interesting why he would be calling me. Not that we are friends, but it's not like we speak daily or weekly or anything like that. But anywho, I texted the individual back and just said, "Hey, I'm golfing, and I'll call you later." He's like, "No worries, just whenever you get a minute." So I, reached back out to him after I got done with my round, and he kind of told me some things were going on and asked if I'd be interested in coming back to coach at Afton at the U14 team. And I, at the end of the day, said yes. And after giving it some thought to make sure I fully wanted to, get back into this and just make sure that it's a grind. So this year I didn't pick the team, so good for me. Win, lose, it didn't matter. It's not my team, right? But no, in terms of your tryouts, it like Bobby J said, this is a grind. It does not stop. If you want to be a competitive team, you have to get out and put yourself out there and make calls and meet people. And when you're doing your spring programs and people always say, "Oh, the team's picked already." Well, what do you want it that way? Like if any coach is going to a tryout and not saying like, "Okay, 75% of my team is picked," I wouldn't want to play for that coach if he's like, "I have no idea who's going to be on this team," right? Like there's no way. We'd be fools. And that's how it works. But it doesn't matter if it's hockey, baseball, basketball. Every sport is that way. And again, every coach is doing their homework. And given, this is an expensive sport. So as a parent, yeah, you're sometimes on the wrong side of the fence here. But at the same time, you have to understand those that are on the right fence, have to appreciate the coaches for putting in their time and efforts and do their due diligence to build a 20, 22-man roster. So it's a lot of work. It doesn't stop. You're always evaluating. You're always going to ranks outside of what your team's at just to see what's out there. It's a lot of freaking work, but it's, I guess at the end of the day is the rewards everything for the boys. I mean, that's where it's at. It's a lot of work. But it is worth it at the end of the day. And so, yeah, kind of leave it at that.
Greg, you're like Michael Corleone. Just when you thought you were out, they bring you back in.
Yeah, well, you know what, though? I wouldn't want it anyway. This game's given me absolutely everything, just for all of us. I know Cooper. I've met him a few times. He's been out to a few of my practices with a buddy of mine that was coach with me, Tommy Heinzman. And Cooper's came out a few years ago at the Car Shield practices. And I know Cooper's has had a great team over there at the Sting. And then, year in and year out, he does a great job. And then, Bobby J, his record just, continues to show for itself. And you talk about adversity in this individual that has had to manage so many different obstacles here in the past few years. And Bobby, I can't imagine the things you had to go through, but man, it just kind of shows a testament of you as a leader, and just with that, like, your players would probably do anything just because of the way you handled everything these past few years. So, I want to kind of continue on that and just tell you, obviously you do a great job, and for being the sport that we love, you appreciate that. So
I appreciate, I do appreciate that. But, I think I've had 8 kids that were with us for all 3 years. Regardless of leadership, you need your core to be strong. And my core has been extremely strong.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, on the maybe if we could start with 14U specific, tell our listeners, what do you think matters more in 14U development? Is it skill or IQ, and why would you say one or the other?
It's a little bit of everything. Obviously, for me as a coach, every year is we do skill specific drills. There's communication constantly going on. If that's in practice, if that's through video, if that's through, I'll tell you, I'm something wrong with me. I watch every practice of ours. I send clips to my boys every practice and just show them, hey, this is it. In fact, I got a text message today from one of the boys that I was kind of on him yesterday at practice, and he texted me this afternoon and said, hey, and sent me the clip. He's like, yeah, you're right. Like, I see it now. Like, so, in terms, you got to have a little bit of that. You need to have a little skill. Your hockey IQ needs to develop, and you got to have some grit with your game, but everything to evolve. Your skills. My practices are small area games, a lot of touches. We like to incorporate, one touch passes to scissor plays. Once you get a one touch and a scissor completed, you can go on the offense. So there's constant movement, there's constant support, constant communication amongst the boys, like talking's everything. And then, hockey IQ, I'm a hands-on coach. I'm always talking, like, hey, making like 2-on-1 situations, 1v1 situations, 3v2 situations, back checking situations, through the neutral zone, whatever it may be, like teaching these guys the games and it's great. You like, especially for this year, like these boys were pretty raw when I got here, and I didn't know any of them, and so coming into where I came this season in mid-October, I stepped back, and it's kind of like, I love this though, because I can do what they didn't know any different. So I didn't have to break any bad tendencies or anything of that nature. I was able just to implement what has worked for me in the past. And these kids at the age of 14, these kids are just sponges. They want this, and first off, you have to make sure, the message is right. And I'm a team guy. And, so I implement, every practice we practice with a purpose. There's a reason why we do it. And I explain that to the boys, and the next drill we kind of implement, and it's like, all right, this is why we did A, now we're going to B, and just kind of just go down the road here and just kind of build up the foundation of what we're doing. And it just continues to work on their hockey IQ and skills. You got to have it. So it's constant communication. It's constant videos. It's constant, small area games is huge. I'm not going out there just doing flow drills. There's a purpose and a reason why we do what we do.
Yeah. What would you say, Greg, are some things that parents worry about maybe at 14U that they shouldn't?
You see it. Yeah, get ready to hit the mute button. No, I tell you, this is a unique sport. So it's very competitive. AAA is a different animal than it is at the Central States level. This sport is extremely expensive, and just you add everything together, it just kind of sometimes gets a little crazy, right? So I think that some parents just kind of get ahead of themselves and think that maybe their kid's better than what they are. And at the end of the day, it's about, you need to step back and enjoy this. Like we are coaches for a reason. Let me tell you this. If I know, Bobby, how long have you been coaching?
I would say over 20 years, probably 23 years, maybe.
All right. So I'm at 21. This is my 21st year. Cooper, you're younger in the tooth, my man. So, what are you, 5-6 years in?
Yep. About 6.
Yep. So I'll tell you this, if us coaches who's been doing this for a while didn't have the best interests for their boys, their kids, we wouldn't be coaching, right? Like we would get sifted out because of not doing the right thing. So you got to tell these parents, hey, step back. I'm not here to manipulate, this has nothing to do about us as coaches. We're giving back to the game that's given us everything. And so, when you deal with parents, you kind of just let them know, hey, let me coach. Trust me. I'm not asking you to agree everything I do, but trust me, I have the best interest of not only your kid, but us as a team. Just step back and let us do that. Like, don't throw interference. We're together a lot more than our most families are, right? Like more times than we are with our wives and families. So it's like we're trying to build a culture that is good, because we're going to be spending a lot of time together. So, it's a tough road to navigate, right? But I think the best thing is you got to be upfront. You got to be absolutely honest to your parents and just let them know that, hey, you're a huge part of this. And it starts at the coaching staff, but you're the next most important person in this line. And if it doesn't because your words, you're in a vehicle, you're away to the rink, and if you're saying something that's different of what's going against your coaching staff, this doesn't work. So, in terms of the parents, let your coaches coach. If they have if you don't like it, well then, at the end of the year, reevaluate. And if you don't like where you're at, then you can always leave, which is unfortunate. But again, you do control this, but allow that coach in that season to trust him, let him coach and develop your child. So long-winded story, but or answers. I apologize for that. I'm a yapper, so I apologize.
Well, transitioning to 16U, and we already kind of mentioned this a little bit, Coach, but these kids are now starting to get their freedom. They're starting to get, be able to spread their wings a little bit, which can be great for a team. It can also cause some distraction and disruption. So as you get these kids 15, turning 16, what do you do to help keep your team from stalling? And none of us can eliminate distractions, but how do you minimize it, or how do you put things in perspective?
Yeah. It's kind of hard to do, but you kind of have to have a mix of keeping it light and fun, but also, engage them. You have to be hard on them. Sometimes have those tough conversations, whether it's hockey related, life related, things come up. I will say probably the most enjoyable thing about it is seeing these kids kind of, figure out who they are as a person, kind of come into their personality. Kids at, 13, 14 years old, they're shy, quiet, don't want to talk to the coach. And now, first thing when I walk into the rink, they're all like, "What's up, coach?" Just kind of, I don't know if I can say that on here, but like, chopping it up with me, which is fun to see, but keeping it light, keeping it engaged. Sometimes it depends where we are in the season, but if we'll get like a weekend sweep, we'll have a fun day the next practice, or, after we won Central States, we had a fun day. Sometimes I'll pick up some Little Caesars pizza, shout out Michigan, and we'll do like a little video session, right? Kind of keeping it just fun and enjoyable for them. Because
especially when you win 43-0.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, at the end of the day, hockey's not forever. So just having them enjoy it, be able to work hard at something they love, because if they can't work hard at a sport they enjoy, how are they going to do it at their job when they get older?
Bob, to follow that up, talking about enjoying hockey, 18U is for most of the kids, whether by choice or just by design, that's kind of the end of the road for them, at least in the level of competition that they're used to. How do you define success for an 18U player, especially if there's a chance that they're not going to play in a competitive style game like this again? As you navigate the season, how do you build that culture to continue to define success and keep those 18U players as bought in as you've been able to?
Yeah, 18U to me is the most challenging of all years, especially at Tier 2. It's you've got kids at the age where other things are as important, or maybe more important than hockey. You got girlfriends, they don't want to miss their dances. They're interested in playing their high school games, and I get it. I love high school games. You can go play one of our 18U games in front of 30 friends and 30 family members, grandma, grandpa, or you can go to a packed barn at Afton or Centene and play in front of all your friends and your girlfriend and their friends. And so I get all that. So at 18U, especially at 18U Tier 2, you need to sort of balance that as much as you can while still maintaining sort of a I don't want to call it a firm line, but you can't be creating exceptions for one kid or another here and there, and it's just that just doesn't work. As I mentioned, I was I'm very fortunate. I've got 8 kids that have been with me all 3 years. I've got 2 more that joined me after 1 year of AAA, so that's 10 kids that were here at 15U, and we're still here this year. And, it's a strong core. The buy-in, the attention to detail at 18U is like nothing I've ever seen in my years of coaching 18U. And I coached several years I hate to say this on here, but several years at Chesterfield. So
no.
So I'm used to that 18-year-old culture, but our kids were bought in, and they're still bought in. They want this for each other. Last year we won the league, and lost in the championship game of the national qualifiers. That's still, even though a year has gone by, that's still fresh in everybody's mind. Our kids are committed. So it does make my job, a little bit easier. In terms of how to coach 18-year-old kids, it's different. You
got to be crazy. You got to be a little bit crazy.
You have to be a little bit crazy, but, you have to. And I think this is true at every level, but kids want to be inspired, in particular, as the older they get. They don't want to be screamed at.
Yeah.
They want to be inspired. So, the trick is to letting them know, that you care about them as a person. You care about what they're doing, when they're away from the hockey rink. You follow that approach. I think ultimately, when you do have to yell at them about something, they're gonna realize that yelling is coming from a place of love and not coaching ego.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, hold those thoughts, because we got to take a quick break and pay a few bills, but we want to let our hair down a little bit in this second half, maybe talk and share some funny stories. But guys, it's been a great first half here, and we're going to pause for a second as we pay a few bills by highlighting our great sponsors.
This segment of Too Many Men on the Mic is brought to you by Big Bear Tournaments. End your season on a high note with Big Bear Tournaments. March 6th through 8th, sign up for Horseshoe Showdown in Lexington, Kentucky, or Luck of the Irish right here in St. Louis. They are still accepting registrations at all age groups, so claim your spot today at bigbeartournaments.com. As always, tell them Too Many Men on the Mic sent you to receive exclusive deals on the entry fee.
This next segment of Too Many Men on the Mic is brought to you by 5B Designs. St. Louis hockey families and business leaders, if you need custom gear that stands out and stands for something, it's time to meet 5B Designs. Founded by Shannon Brahini, a proud St. Louis mom and entrepreneur, 5B Designs is a woman-owned small business that brings purpose to custom apparel. Whether you're suiting up your youth or high school hockey team or leveling up your company's branded swag, 5B delivers top-notch quality with a personal touch. If you need a team store, not a problem. Corporate polos or event giveaways, they've got you covered. 5B makes it easy with fast turnaround, flexible service, and designs your players or employees will love to wear. It's not just about the great gear. Check them out here at stores.inksoft.com/5B Designs. That's the word 5, and see what purpose-driven apparel looks like. All right, we are back from our break, and we've got Coach Cooper Cedot of the St. Louis 16U Sting, Central States. We've got Coach Greg Anderson of the St. Louis Eagles 14U, and Coach Bob Jakubek of the Afton Americans 18U Central States. If you're just joining us, all three of these coaches have won the 2025-26 regular season and postseason championship for their respective divisions and age group in Central States. And we're here having a great conversation about, the different approaches of what goes into being a great coach, and really how to get the most out of your players, and by extension, your parents. So guys, welcome back. Let's have a great conversation here as we continue on the show. Kick it over to Drew.
Yeah, guys. So let's dig into this. What is the perception of the Central States Development Hockey League? It is a Chicago-based league. And so some of our listeners might not know that. This is a Tier 2 league that's run out of Chicago, that has more Chicago teams than St. Louis teams. There might be 2 or 3 teams. There might potentially be 1 team for St. Louis at any given birth year. So how from a coach's view, do you think the Chicago-based league views St. Louis teams? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's changed over time. Particularly as the St. Louis teams have become more and more successful in the league. You're seeing more and more St. Louis teams. Heck, Cooper's won 3 years in a row. So you're seeing more.
Not a big deal.
Not a big deal. Right?
Not a big deal.
And
you've got 2 in a row there, Coach. You've got 2 in a row.
Well, I know, but I can't get past the point that he said, 5 or 6 years. So Cooper thinks this is what it's like every year. In talking to somebody who's been around for 23 years, I can attest to the fact that no, it's definitely not like that every year. But hockey's gotten stronger and stronger, I think, in St. Louis. Most of the birth years are deeper and stronger, and that's filtering down into Tier 2. And at most levels, our teams are highly competitive, typically finishing as top half standings teams, and in many cases we're winning the league or winning the playoffs. So. I think we're highly respected. I don't think it's always been that way.
Yeah, I'll touch base on that. Like with, when I first started coaching, it was at Afton. My first 2 years was just AA, and then I went on to Central States, and so I left for a little bit, and here I am again. But I think the perception of just for the past 4 months being with this team and interacting with some of the coaches that from the Chicago area when we're in town or they're in town here, I think. I think the St. Louis teams are well respected. I think that, they know they're going to come in here and get a battle, and that's for all 3 programs in St. Louis. And I think it's a testament, again, just that, hockey has come a long way, right? Like in the St. Louis area, and it's a testament to the coaches. There's a lot of damn good coaches we have in this area. And it starts, not only when they're young, before we even get them, so I think St. Louis has come a long way. I think that the St. Louis teams are represented well, or respected well by the Chicago team, as much as they hate to admit that. But the success keeps coming. So the results can't lie. So.
Well, Cooper, you've won 3 in a row, but coaching 6 years. So for 3 years, you didn't. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with both their points for as far as like St. Louis hockey getting better. I mean, I can't attest because I haven't been around to kind of experience that. I know growing up I played against the 96 Blues, which was Al McInnes. They always had a great team. And as far as like the Sting, they're kind of, I guess, late party comers to the whole Central States ordeal. So kind of, at least for us to see where we've come, from 6 years ago to now, it's been awesome. And, we're only getting better each year. And as far as, Chicago's view on us, or they hate us. So I kind of use it as fuel. Like if we're going into Chicago, like we're not going to get calls from refs. They just don't want us to win. So, why not experience that adversity and kind of, be able to battle through that and beat the refs, beat the other team, beat whatever sort of condition, because sometimes that's just how life is. You got to get through it. Right.
Well, Coach, let's stick with you here because it's a long season, especially as you get into 16U and kids start playing high school. There's anywhere from 50, 60, sometimes 70 games. How do you, as a coach, manage a lot of the adversity and the ups and downs? And all of this seems to go back to picking a good group of kids at the beginning of the season. But look, kids change, personalities happen. I mean, how do you manage that adversity as the ups and downs of the season goes on? And then everybody else let's just feel free to jump in after Coach kind of talks it up.
Yeah. It's a long season, obviously, maintaining your body, your diet, all that stuff. It's kind of on them to an extent. We have, workouts after every practice. We'll do video sessions. Sometimes we'll throw in a video session instead of working out. Sometimes the workout will be a little bit tamer, maybe some stretching, foam rolling. Sometimes it'll be more intense. Kind of judging, you know, if you're heading into, let's say, a potential 6-game weekend, probably not going to do necessarily a lot of skating the day before you leave. Maybe it's more um, systems focused, power play, penalty kill. A lot of that I learned from when I played at Lindenwood for Coach Zombo. Obviously, kind of the practice structure and scheme is a little bit different. You have your Monday through Thursday, you play on the weekend, but the first 2 days of the week were always hard, and the last 2 days were kind of more detailed system focused. So I try to plan our practice schedule accordingly to that, or depending on who we're playing, things like that. I'm sure these coaches can kind of attest to that, as we're all probably big hockey nerds, like watching film. What can we work on, and sort of manipulate and tweak drills in certain ways that are going to benefit not only the individuals but the team too.
Jump on in, fellas. What are some of the things that you guys do? Maybe Coach Bobby?
Yeah. I want to echo what Greg said earlier. Our practices are we do a lot of small area games, and even in the non-small area game drills, we find a way to keep score. We keep score almost everything we do, and it fosters this extremely competitive atmosphere. I can tell you this: I have a bunch of sore losers on my team. I'm not doing my job if I'm not getting yelled at 2 or 3 times a practice about favoring one side or the other. And sometimes I do, to create a little adversity, one way or another. And I know my great assistant coaches do the same. Partly it is constructive, partly it is we know who has the short triggers, and sometimes we just like to. But
I might know a few of those guys myself there, Coach.
Yeah, I think you probably do. In terms of managing adversity, it's you have 3 pretty successful teams on here. Heck, I think Greg's team, when he took over, was 5-9. He was being modest before. I don't think they lost more than 2-3 games the whole rest of the year. Cooper's coming off 3 championships. We're coming off 2, and the one year we didn't. We finished first in the regular season and lost in the championship. So sometimes you need to sort of create some adversity yourself. It's interesting. Just reading the reactions of people, because sometimes we'll come in the room after a 4-1, 5-1 win, and that's as good a time as any to go off on them about something, and I may or may not be worked up over, but just trying to keep them focused is sometimes a tough job. And then when they're not playing well, you just need to know how to read the room. I think I'm not sure. I think I have strengths. I think I have leadership strengths, but I do think that one of my big strengths is reading the room, and knowing if this is the time to just blow up on them, or if they need encouragement. It's a long season. It's a long season. The bottom line is you can't overreact to a single moment or a game either way. Most teams are going to have some ups and downs. You want some adversity. I think I was told some parents this year, I'm like, I never drive to the rink thinking, okay, this is a game I want to lose, but it's always in the back of my mind, like, okay, it wouldn't hurt my feelings if we lost a game here or there. Sure. Because in the end, you want these boys, when you get to the end of the season, when the games mean the most, to be battle tested and to be ready to fight through everything. And we have a little bit of a unique situation. Our kids experience true loss. So losing a hockey game does not scare them. These kids are determined and they don't scare easily. And, we've come back. It became a problem for a little while, about midway through the year. We would just consistently dig holes for ourselves and then come back in the third period and win games. We finally got to the point where they realized after we lost a game, we came back. It looked like we were going to come back and maybe potentially pull it out. And I'm thinking, I'm on the bench telling my assistant coaches, I'm like, I don't think it'd be a great thing if we came back and won this game, but I'm not going to root against it. Yeah.
Greg, you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think Cooper touched on it. The biggest thing is, you manage the schedule, right? I think Cooper, kind of his structure and practice, is no different than mine. Tuesdays we go hard, Wednesday a little lighter, Thursday the lightest of the week, right? And usually on Thursday, special teams flow drills, but you kind of lean each other early on in the week, and as you prepare towards that game weekend, you're more on flow drills and structure in terms of instead of going hard. But I think the biggest thing is to manage the season, keep it fresh. For the guys, it is a long season, and I think the biggest thing is it's stressful for coaches too when things aren't going well, and it's easy to kind of get off that track, and I think the message has to be constant. You get the boys feed off of everything that you say. They can read your emotions. They know. So, be direct with them, and they believe in you. You're their leader, right? You can't show any cracks in that. So, and just navigate you'll never figure anything out in the season. You can't predict the future. So, I think, to manage the schedule, keep it light, be communicative. I'll tell you a real quick story. I know, like 2 weeks, the second to last weekend, we were in Kenosha, Wisconsin playing, I think it's the Vipers, if I'm not mistaken. And, we had 2 games on a Saturday. We played early morning, one in OT. Second night, or Saturday night, was our game 2. And we were sitting in the lobby just getting ready to leave. I kind of we did video. We all went to the lobby. There was a couple parents there. There was a D-man, and his dad was next to me. And he's like, Bex, you haven't scored a goal all year. I'll give you $100 if you score a game tonight or a goal tonight. And I'm like, whoa. I said, okay. I said, hey, listen, he's not going to come off the ice now. So, and I said, Bex, hey, we split this, right? He said, absolutely. I'm like, all right, sounds good. So we go to the third period. The game got away. We were up like, I don't know, a 6, 7, 8, 1. I don't know, whatever it was. And I'm like, Bex, get up here. And he looks at me and I'm like, you're going up the forward, baby. Let's go. So he comes up and I swap him out. I double shift him. I mean, hand to God, he had some really good scoring opportunities. And I'm looking up his dad saying, get that money ready. This is going on during the game. But, and all the boys, you should see, they were loving it. They're like, this is great. So you got to keep it light, have fun when you have time, because it's a long season, it's a grind, and there's a lot of high stressful situations that these kids are involved in it at a young age. And so when there's any opportunity to put the foot off the gas for a second, man, I'm all for it, because they were just loving it. And unfortunately he didn't, but we kind of were messing with him. Like, you still kind of give him $50, but who knows if that happened.
Well, Dad didn't score either, though. So I've yet to see a parent or coach score a goal yet. So
yeah, that's right. Very true. Very true.
I love it. That's a great story. And, I guess just I think we've got time for one more question, guys, here, or maybe 2 more. Tell us, Greg, let's start with you. What was your favorite moment of this championship run that you're on the backside of? So looking back on it, reflecting on it, was it that story of getting that kid the $100, or what was your favorite moment out of this championship run that you've just been a part of?
I think just the playoffs, when I came in, we just changed kind of the culture and the dynamics of everything that this team has gone through. And they finally got some direction. And got some belief and we got some games under our belts that we were winning and their confidence kind of grew. And, then we get to we were hunting to get in the playoffs. Right. And the boys just never stopped. They just kept winning. And, just to watch that. And then, we get to playoffs and in our first game was against the Chargers, I believe it. Yeah, the Chargers. And we were up 3-1 after 2. We were up 2-0 after 1, 3-1 after 2. And I tell you, that first period we had it was a crazy first period. One of our kids broke his back early in the first period. A few moments later, one of our D-men got knocked out, literally lying on the ice, motionless. We went to the locker room. That we didn't finish the period. They had to call the ambulance. They came back, and so we continue on, and we're up 2-0 after 1, 3-1 after 2, and then they tie it up 3-3 in the third, and we lose in overtime. And for any team that it just that in itself, these kids. The way they just kept fighting and the adversity they went through and how they composed themselves. And, I kind of regrouped. I was lost for words after that first game. And I left the ice rink and I just, that 15-minute drive from the rink to the hotel gave me some time to reflect on how to approach this. And obviously as a coach, you got to lead, and these boys have believed in me since I've been here. So that allowed me enough time, and it just kind of hit me like, all right, I got to have a team meeting. Like, this is not over yet. We're going. So I text the group, said, hey, dinner, hotel, team meeting. And we just went into a room and we talked about it, and I said, we're going to forget about this, but we're going to learn from this. And, it sucked. And the boys went through a lot that first game. And so I think for me as a coach, I'm like, we got to get through this. This is a teachable moment for these young kids to understand what's at stake. Our season's not done. There is a chance. It's just we may not just have the we may need some help along the way. We may not control our own destiny here now. So game 2 we went to, and the boys won another game in overtime. And the resiliency, again, just shows up that they don't, we bend, but we don't break. I mean, that's the mindset. These kids are amazing. They truly are. The resilience that they have, the resiliency they have, and they show, there's no flutter, there's no panic, but I think they trust me. And that's this message I send. They're like, we'll be fine. Like, just keep plugging away. Just don't give up anymore. Like that's the mindset where we can't give anymore. Trust me. Like, so then we get to the game 3, and it's a must win, and against the first place team, the Sabres, right? And we're down 3-1 going into the third period. And I told them at in between the second and third, I'm like, hey, I'm telling you, they're comfortable. Their game's comfortable right now. We get the next one, things are going to change. We have to get the next one, though. If we don't, it's not happening. I don't know if it was the first or second. It may have been that first shift of that third period. They popped one, and the gates just flooded. We scored four unanswered goals that period, won 5-3. And then, at that point in time, it's, okay, here we go. So I don't know. We made it to the finals, and just to see how it evolved, where these kids came from, and hearing the stories from the parents and everything, it's just everything. To step back and reflect on this season. It's these boys are everything. It's been a hell of a group to coach. This has nothing to do with me. I'm not I'm giving back to this game that's given me absolutely everything in my life. I don't like the attention. I'm just doing what a coach does, right? Like, I want these boys to believe in me, and that's my message to them. But that's who I am. I'm not changing. This is what I'm doing this year is not anything different than I've done in the past. Besides maybe when I was really young and I thought I knew everything when I was coaching. I was just a complete donkey. But as you get older, you kind of just figure things out. Barking at a ref doesn't do anything. It just the small things don't mean anything, and the boys feed off of that. So we're in this together, so I don't know, just the whole season's been incredible. It's been a great ride and I've enjoyed it. So here we go. Here we come back for next year, baby.
Coach Coop, what about you? What's your moment?
Yeah. So I guess my 2 biggest ones or my favorite ones we were 100% on the penalty kill. And we played in 4 games, and my highest, point scorer had 2 points. So I think there may be 2 kids who didn't have a point over the weekend, which is kind of awesome because we just needed everybody. And that's kind of been our MO this year, because we did lose a phenomenal Central States player. I think he had 58 points just in league play last year, and he was a great player. So it's kind of that, we don't need people to step up and be someone they're not, but collectively, like we're fine, and that kind of proved that point. And my other favorite, I guess, moment was we almost blew it. We were up 3-0 with about 6 minutes left, and they popped 2 in. So I called the timeout, tried to calm them down, just get their legs under them, take a deep breath, and lo and behold, next shift they pop one in. But so that goal actually got called back. It was a clear kicking motion, in my opinion, and if the ref didn't think that, there's no way a Chicago ref's going to pull back a goal for a Chicago team against the St. Louis one. So is what it is. But after that, we decided to take a penalty with 3 minutes left, and we ended up kind of.
Hopefully it wasn't 200
that
feet
off.
from your net. Hopefully it wasn't 200 feet from your net.
Yeah, no, it was after the whistle, so it wasn't the best play, I'd say. But they got it done. They were resilient. Had to scare me a little bit. And to end things, I always go by my motto: if the team wins, it's good coaching. If they lose, the kids just didn't listen.
Coach Bobby, take us home here, man.
Yeah, hey Cooper, I hate to disagree with you, but in our championship game against the Bulldogs, they had a goal disallowed, the guy, it was kind of a delayed call. Their guy skated in front of the net, kind of clipped the goalie. Then he went down, and it was the guy from the point shot the puck basically into an empty net, and they end up disallowing it. But I don't know. Maybe the Chicago refs like me more than you. I want to echo what Greg said. This is about the kids. This isn't about any of us. My favorite memory is just watching the smiles on the kids' faces after we won. Particularly we only had 407s on our team. But the 407s who hadn't had much playoff success prior to this year. Lucas Kemp, one of our maybe the most complete all-around player that I've coached, decided to tell me, the day of our first game of playoffs, he goes, "Coach, I'm 1-8 in playoffs." And I said,
Get
okay,
off the bench.
I didn't hear that
undressed.
right now. I didn't hear that right now, but let's see if we can make that 5-8. And and we did, and the smiles on those on the boys' faces, especially the 07s, was just absolutely priceless, and that's why I do what I do.
Well,
Love
guys, we can't thank you enough for sharing 50 minutes of your time here with us and the stories. We'll have to get together again probably after next season when you guys are, when Bob, you go three in a row, and Cooper goes 4 in a row, and Greg will be 2 in a row. But guys, thank you so much. More importantly, thank you as a fellow coach, as a parent, for what you guys do for these young men and these young hockey players. Because it is, hockey's the easy part. I think most coaches would agree. It's the relationships, it's being, communicative, and the genuine give back and love. And I think if nothing else, that comes through in just talking to you all and seeing the looks on your faces, except Greg, because he can't get his flip phone to work.
Well, you guys are good looking. I don't want to bring that down. So, I just keep my ugly face off the camera. I'll be okay.
But,
in the end, we get a lot more than we give. So it's,
absolutely.
I taking any credit feels, a little wrong to me. So
it's a joy for us all, and you can really hear it in all your voices, guys. You really can. That's why you're special.
Well, we appreciate it. Thanks for having us.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. It was
All right,
awesome.
guys.
thank you.
Have fun at the rink. Have fun at the rink tonight, and good luck in nationals.
On to practice. Here we go.
Yep, absolutely. Good luck in nationals, guys.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
So not once did I even say the word Michigan.
You just did. You know, we could have gone on and on and on, and I know we got jam-packed on time here. So
Yeah.
I just want to say thanks to the coaches. Continue to support youth hockey. We'll be back next week with Municipal, and we'll have the kids back on. Thanks for tuning in to Too Many Men on the Mic. We'll see you next week.
Play the song, Grant. You shoots, he scores. Thanks, everyone.